So a few weeks ago I released my video on YouTube on the setup I use for camping in my Subaru Outback on photography trips. And since then I've received some questions about, asking more details about how it's constructed and so on. So in this video I'm going to show how the sleeping platform is constructed and some of the design considerations that went into that, in case you're interested in building a similar setup for your car camping. So there were a few primary considerations in the layout of my camping setup. First, I needed a place to sleep. My Outback has the 60-40 rear seat, and so by folding down the 60% part of the back seat on the passenger side, I get a 26-inch wide corridor for sleeping. This accommodates my 25-inch wide Kelty sleeping pad perfectly. Another major consideration was storage. I knew I wanted to use this space here for organized storage in some kind of bins. And so my thought was to build a platform here that would level the bed and provide space down here for organized storage. Another consideration is the overall height. The Subaru Outback it's not a super tall car, and so I wanted to have relatively short bins to maximize the amount of headroom I had in here if I was on the bed. And so I got these 4 bins from the Container Store. 4 bins here that fit perfectly in this space. These bins are 5.5 inches tall, and I'll explain why that's important here coming up. And so the next task was to build a sleeping platform over this that also provided a level surface for sleeping on the right-hand side here. So the back half of the sleeping platform is simply constructed of 9/16" plywood sheet and 1x6 lumber. Nice thing about 1x6 lumber is that it's actually 5.5 inches tall. So that means my bin, which is just under 5.5 inches deep, fits perfectly in here when it's in the car. And so that's why I look for these particular bins that are just the right height. And these are not easy to find. Most bins are taller than this. But these bins that I found at the Container Store were just the right height. I'll put their model numbers down in the description below. Now on the end over here I have 2 1/4-inch long carriage bolts. These carriage bolts are just glued into the lumber with wood glue. And these are used to fasten this rear part of the sleeping platform with the front part of the sleeping platform. And I'll show you that in more detail later. So for 2 of the containers, I attach these cords just by simply drilling holes in the bottom, passing a cord through, and there's a washer here, and then a knot. And what that does is it allows me to put container that's deepest in here like this and still have an easy string to pull it back out when I need it. So I push those in, and then this container goes there, and then similarly over here. That makes all the containers easy to access. So for the forward part of the bed, there's 2 components. There's this frame, which is all constructed of the same 1x6 lumber I talked about earlier, and that slides in first. So to copy the profile of the Subaru's seat back to the edge of the lumber, I attached a scrap piece of cardboard to a 4-foot-long straight edge and placed that on the back sleeping platform. Then used a Sharpie to trace the profile onto the cardboard. The cardboard then served as a template for cutting the edge of the lumber to shape. These things don't always work out perfect, but a little trimming in here and a little cutting there will usually make it work. Oh, I'll note that there's 2 holes here, and those holes will receive the carriage bolts that I mentioned earlier. And then the frame will receive the carriage bolts through these 2 holes. And is this secured in place with a large washer and wing nut. Then finally, the hinged part of the sleeping platform comes in. This has 4 pieces of wood here which nest inside the frame. And the second half of the platform can hinge forward like this. I have a strap here which goes around the passenger side headrest, clips like this to provide that support on this end here. And this is, of course, is adjustable length, so I can vary the angle of where my head is when I'm sleeping. Another nice thing about this design is this is relatively easy to just lift up, and there's great storage down here. So the next step with these components was to cover them. I have an 1/8" thick closed-cell foam pad, the full length from here to here for the sleeping area. That's just to protect my knees as I'm crawling around on this thing. And then I also cover this all in an outdoor carpet. I also wanted a table surface in which to cook on and things like that. So I cut this piece of plywood, and it attaches here with hinges. So I started with hinges with removable pins. And you can see there's 2 hinge halves that are already part of the sleeping platform. And so the table simply attaches with these pins. And can be folded, could fold back like this into the sleeping area when not in use. To support the table, there's a couple of different ways I was thinking through how to do that. I thought about maybe a strap that comes up from the end of the table to the car frame, or a leg that came down to the ground, or a leg that came down to the bumper here. In the end, I had a piece of aluminum bar here, and so I attached the aluminum bar so it would slide out from the frame down here, and the table just rests on that along this edge. And that's plenty good for cooking on. You can see here how I attach this aluminum bar to the frame. It's definitely not a very elegant solution, but there's simply a screw head here which traps the bottom edge, and a screw here which traps the top edge. So the bar is sort of nested between these screw heads and the wood. And I have that set up here and also back in here. And then this simply slides in and out on those screw heads. And there's also a screw in the very back that provides a final stop, so it can't fall back in there. Not super elegant, but there's plenty of different ways one can do this. You could put a drawer slide in there. You could use folding down legs that allow the table to rest on the bumper or on the ground. This is just the way I ended up doing it. As I've shown in some of my other videos, I will often put a tarp over the hatchback to poles out here to keep rain out. One of the concerns I had was that a gust of wind could interact with that tarp and throw the hatchback closed. And the hatchback could collide with the table and knock over a stove with a pot of hot water on it and make a big mess. And so I've also cut a stick to length, and that sits right in here and serves as a way to prevent the hatchback from closing. So just one additional safety feature I've added over the last few weeks. These WeatherGuard window covers are great for sleeping in the car. They let you leave the window down a little bit for ventilation in the car at night. And then I also made these magnetic bug screens for my windows. These are just a piece of bug screen from an old tent with some duct tape around the edges and magnets inside, and so it just magnetically sticks to the car and keeps the bugs out. Super easy to make and really easy to install. Yeah, so that's just a few more details in my car camping setup. I hope you found that useful, particularly if you're making your own car camping setup. And we'd love to hear your ideas and comments down in the description below. Yeah, so thanks for visiting my channel, and I hope to see you again soon.